Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining Limud. Thank you for spending your day, your hour, the next 50 minutes with me to not only learn together, but to learn from each other. So I want to say a couple things before I get started. The smartest person in the room is probably in the box next to you, not the box you're staring at. So I want to make sure that there's a beautiful tradition in the Midrash, in the oral teaching of our rabbinic learning, which says that before we're born, all the Torah is filled within us. And as we're pushed through the birth canal or however you got out, God pushes on the philtrum and you forget everything you know. And our task in life is to meet people that help us recapture and re-understand everything that we already know, which means that you have all the Torah already in you. By far more Torah than I ever have to give you. So your Torah is so important. So if you thought you were just going to sit back in your comfy sofa today, you can sit back in your comfy sofa, but I will have you interact. And as people are coming on, I want you to continue to introduce yourself because we have people from as far as South Africa. Wayne, great to see you, and Ireland. And so I'm just delighted. So with that, let's get started. As you know, we are days away from Shavuot, from the holiday of blintzes and ice cream sundaes and lots of dairy that we can't even remember why, or we don't even know why. But we are celebrating this spectacular moment at Sinai, where we have left Egypt and we have come to the middle of the wilderness, to the desert. And in that desert, we get the Torah. So we've come from this place called Egypt, which, as you know, was the place of slavery and was the place of the narrows. It was constricted. It was the place we built pyramids out of sand. It was the place where, and then we got to the wilderness, which is fitting because this week at Shul, we started Bamidbar, the fourth book of the Torah, which is called In the Wilderness. And actually the Midbar, the wilderness, is mentioned 300 times. So I can't think of a more fitting time to talk about being in the wilderness, because more than anything in this moment, we are in one. So before we do anything, I want you to take a moment and close your eyes. I promise I won't tell anybody if they're open, but go ahead and take a risk with me. And just listen. The wilderness forces us to let go of our control. And in the dark night of faith, we let God lead us in the journey to the promised land, even if we get there circuitously by way of the desert. So while your eyes are closed, think about what a wilderness is. Go ahead and open your eyes. As I mentioned, we are in a wilderness. It's an unbearable time when there is discomfort and trials, financial, emotional, all kinds of uncertainty. It's unpredictable. And this moment that we're living in, these last 2.5 months, one could argue is very much a wilderness. So what I want you to do is think of all the adjectives that you personally would use to describe this wilderness. So take a moment, write it in the chat. Again, I told you it was going to be interactive. So I prepped you. Good. So it's quiet. It's disorienting. It's a place where you don't know where the next path is, especially because they keep moving the target. It's desolate, alien, foreboding. These are great words. Isolated, lonely, insecure, scary, disconnected, right? Every single one of us has a combination of these feelings every day. And as you know, I describe this to my friends and family as a roller coaster that we're not getting off of. And by the way, I'm a person who hates roller coasters. I don't like talking about them. I don't like getting off about them. Some people just like talking about what they did. This is a wilderness of sorts. This is a roller coaster that is crazy and insecure. It's liminal. And I love JD put, it's an opportunity. We're going to get to that because like all wildernesses, our ancestors have a lot to teach us. And what they're going to teach us, as foreboding as it also is an opportunity. So let me begin by saying there is a silver lining to this moment, which is that we are not strangers to the wilderness. As you know, we're the people that have traversed the wilderness for 40 years. The book of Bamidbar could have ended because we get to the promised land, but then we have this whole book of Devarim. So clearly the wilderness is supposed to be teaching something, and we have this entire body of history to look back on. Here's the other good news. Most of us sitting here have had a moment or a season of wilderness in our own lives. Before the COVID, before this pandemic, most of us have had a moment where we were in a wilderness. And maybe it was depression or a crisis of faith or a traumatic life event. We've all had a moment where we were dying of spiritual thirst, where we felt sort of the unpredictableness of God, and we were forced to rethink and rejigger all our theology. To put it simply, we've had moments of where we just felt utterly disconnected. So even though our ancestors are no strangers to wilderness, probably most of us in this room, this virtual room, are also not a stranger to the wilderness. Most of us, if you live a human life and you interact with people and you experience loss and you experience grief, you've had moments where you've questioned, how does this all make sense and what am I doing here? So probably every one of you have had a season of wilderness. That's the good news. We're experienced in this moment. Now I'm going to tell you the bad news, because with every good news, there's also bad news. There's two hands. The difference is that we're experiencing it collectively. Normally, when we're in a season of wilderness, we experience it personally, and there's a set of rituals that we do. We find the people around us that can support us. If it's a death, we have Shiva, and we literally hold people's hands, but we have this intimate circle of people, and we experience it individually within a small community. But this wilderness is unlike any other we've ever experienced because we are collectively experiencing it as a world. People in Ireland, South Africa, Australia, we are together in this wilderness. What also makes this hard is that there's nowhere to hide. Most of the time in wilderness, when we're experiencing our own, we can hide behind busyness or addiction or our wardrobe or our engagement. We can say like, I don't need to show up for other people. I can say like, I'm grieving or I'm at a loss, and we can hide. But it seems in this wilderness, there's nowhere to hide. We're utterly exposed. And one of the reasons that people struggle to get on Zoom face to face is because it's so exposing. It literally unmasks each person, and we can't have any mask to cover ourselves. If you think you're not exposed, I always think of the first memes we saw when the COVID started. I don't know if you call it the COVID or the pandemic, whatever you choose to call it. Is everybody was putting up memes about their nails, their hair, their makeup. It was like we literally had nothing as a barrier to cover ourselves. So we're physically exposed, we're emotionally exposed, we're spiritually exposed. So what do I want to do today? For the next 40 or so minutes, I want to name this moment. I want to name our wilderness and what makes it so daunting. Then I want us to look at how do we literally claim it? How do we own this wilderness? Because so much of life is just naming this moment and recognizing you're not alone. But as most of you know who have learned with me, and those of you who don't, if a rabbi gives a good teaching and people afterwards say, oh, that rabbi was a really good speech, that is the kiss of death for me. If I hear that was a good sermon or that was a good speech, I just want to bury myself. The greatest compliment for me as a teacher is when someone says a year after in the market, as this actually happened. I was in Whole Food and a woman came up to me and she said, Rabbi, a year ago you gave a talk and it changed the way we do Shabbat every week. And ever since then, we look at Shabbat differently, and no matter what, wherever we are, we light the candles. If words transform you, whether it's my words or the person in your Brady Bunch box next to you, in front of you, on top of you, or behind you, I don't think you could be behind, but above, below, to the right, to the left, whatever that looks like, we're going to create some tools together to brave this wilderness so that we not only feel alone, but that we have the ability to really help each other. So first thing, we have to actually figure out, why are we so afraid? So take your chat and write, what are you afraid of most in this wilderness? Give yourself a moment. If you're struggling to think about it, don't edit yourself. So Avril, losing a connection to my purpose. Not being able to move freely, like visiting family and friends. Loss of freedom. Vulnerability. Sense of community. Not having the right questions, right? Like, what are we supposed to be asking? Demands of the job. Those, it's very strange. Those that are working, on average, are working 3 hours more than they work per day. And those, it's very binary. Either you're working or you're not working. So that's created a real bifurcation in society. Loss of faith. I can't imagine that people that are deep thinkers are not having serious questions about their faith. And maybe your faith is so strong, but it just begs questions, right? Every time we are at a liminal moment, we are forced to face ourselves and the questions that they raise. Brenda, that my mom will die, or that I won't be able to hug my kids. How many of us are afraid that someone will die, or maybe has died, and we haven't been able to hold their hands at their last breath? I don't think any of us could wrap our heads around what that looks like, or what it would have looked like. Being prepared, protecting my family, my job, not having total financial implosion. Missing simchas. So what we're afraid of is really core things. We're not afraid that our son is not going to make the varsity soccer team, or that our daughter isn't going to get into the college. As you notice, nobody wrote that. But maybe 6 months ago, before the pandemic, we would have written, she won't get into the college of her first choice. But if you've noticed, the fears have gotten very, very unmasked. The lack of touch. I think how much about each of us, how much we value touch. I hear so many people saying, I so appreciate my hairstylist just to the way that she blow dries my hair. I took it for granted, right? It's these very simple, mundane things. The way we look at another one in the market when you just have a greeting of passing by. And change. Because we know that change is inevitable in this case, no matter what. We'd like to please, we'd like to think to ourselves, I can handle or manage the risk or be in control, but change is bound to happen. The way we understand synagogues, the way we understand Judaism, the way we learn, everything is going to change. And it's not meant to frighten you. It's meant to name that this is hard. And those of us that don't think it's hard, I'm not sure what you're thinking. So the other thing I want to add to this is many of us, and I think I saw this in the chat, many of us are the emotional conductors of our home. or the financial conductors of our home. And so there's so much that depends on us. And if one thing breaks, we feel the whole system is going to implode. So the next thing I'm going to ask you to do, again, this is a little interactive and a lot of work, is tell me why it's so hard for you. I know you're afraid, but what makes it so hard, this pandemic? Is it the lack of touch, or is it something deeper? I want to share with you as you think about that, is that 88 times in the Bible, God says, Al tira, don't be afraid. It's not because God has a stutter, even though Moses does. It's because God knows is that our instinct is to be afraid. And it is human nature to fear. And so God reminds us over and over again, Al tira, don't be afraid. So what makes this so hard is not knowing how it's all going to happen. What's it going to look like on the other side? You know, normally we look to experts to tell us what it's going to look like. And if you read the news every day, you can tell that the experts have no idea what they're doing because they don't know, right? They're moving the goalpost every day. Today, we found out that Los Angeles is a hotbed again. I don't even know how. I thought we flatlined, right? Because aren't we following all the rules? So that ambiguity of not knowing the future, the lack of control, right? What else makes it hard is loneliness. It turns out that once our basic needs are met for survival, for food, for sleep, for shelter, the biggest challenge to us is loneliness. It's an epidemic. And many of you have heard me talk when I was working at Hillel Well and started Hillel Well. It is a national epidemic. Kids are more lonely than they've ever been, and the rate of suicide has skyrocketed. Failing my children, what makes it hard, right? There's a huge dynamic going on between parents and children that is, you need to do this, you're not my parent, but you are my parent. There's this huge complicated dialogue going on, is how to fit into this new landscape. So what I want to say, earlier, someone said something so beautiful. It says, wildernesses provide opportunities. And in the Torah, we were in the wilderness for 40 years, but let me tell you guys all a secret. It was only a 7-year journey. So there was an extra, someone do the math, 33 years in the wilderness. So the rabbis say that the wilderness was there to teach us something. It was there to teach us something that we didn't know we needed to learn, and we had to learn to brave it, and it took us 33 more years than the actual journey itself. So clearly, wilderness to God and to our history has some sort of sense of purpose. So what I want to do today is we've named that we are in a wilderness. There's no question. It is unclear, it is lonely, it is ambiguous. We've also named that it's hard, that we don't know what it will look like. There's no control. One of my favorite quotes is from Rabbi Jason Rubenstein, who was on the faculty at Hadar, which is in New York. It's a center for learning. He's now the head of the Yale Center for Hillel. He said, at certain heroic times, at moments of greatness and transcendence, we relinquish the illusion that nothing could ever happen to us, and we turn to face the chaos head on. Let me read that one more time, a little bit slower. At certain heroic times, at moments of greatness and transcendence, we relinquish the illusion that nothing could ever happen to us, and we turn to face the chaos head on. What he's saying is that moment when we are in the wilderness, we don't go and bury ourselves in our bed. We don't go and hide. We don't collapse. Although we've definitely had moments of that, I can attest to that, where we've just said, okay, I don't want to get out of bed. But Rabbi Rubenstein is saying we turn and we face the chaos head on. So what does that mean from our tradition, and what does that mean for us today? It means that we take up tools. We possibly build something that serves as inspiration. We do things that enable other people to see that we are a warrior, in the wilderness, right? We don't do it just to make ourselves warrior. We do it as an example for others. What does it mean to be a warrior in the wilderness? It means to do things that we are uncomfortable doing. One of my favorite lines is, how do you get comfortable with the discomfort of life? Right? One of the greatest challenges I know that I personally face is getting comfortable with the discomfort of life. I want things to be easy and smooth and comfortable. And the wilderness is asking us to get comfortable in the discomfort. In the desert, in the dryness, in the scarcity, in the loneliness, in the emotional, spiritual thirst, how do we find peace? Knowing that we definitely don't know when it will end, but knowing that we can endure it because we are a warrior and we are not alone. Here's the other thing. As many of you know that have studied with me, I love neuroscience. I really was a math person growing up. I should have gone into being a doctor. It was my secret other passion, so I married a doctor. But I love science. And it turns out, and please, no scientists in the room quote me on this, but this is what I've learned based on neuroscience, is that resilience comes from attacking and braving new challenges. Because what happens is we are physiologically capable of doing new things. And when we do, they open new neural pathways. So when we try something new, it opens, our brain opens new neural pathways in order to be expansive and to learn and to grow. This means that we are genetically wired to face discomfort and to try new things, right? I like that because it's not just, I got to have willpower or I got to believe in God. It's like, I actually physiologically am capable of growing and of building a new set of tools. Let's pause here for a moment. Tell me in the chat, and by the way, I'll give ample time for questions at the end. I just want to get it all on paper, or virtual paper. How have you acted in different ways that you did not expect? In what ways have you been a warrior in the wilderness? And I want to caution you, this does not mean that you went and jumped in front of a train to save a child, because I know you certainly did not do that. The definition of courage can be that, but the definition of courage is facing your fears and doing it anyway. It's saying, I'm terrified, I'm in the wilderness, I don't know what to do, but I face my fears and do it anyway. So tell me something that you did differently, that you didn't expect or you never thought you could do. Go ahead and put it in the chat. And if you think that you haven't done anything, I promise you, you have. Because you're sitting on a Zoom chat at Limud learning Torah. And that's an act of courage. So good. So some of you have written, I've been more patient. How many people have been more patient? I can certainly say that's not me. Stepped up as a leader. In what way? Tell me, Sabine, write up why, how have you been a leader? Oh, I love this one. Learn new technology. The amount of people that I had to teach how to use Zoom in the beginning of this pandemic and how expert they've become at it. And 94-year-olds being like, I don't want to be on the mute right now, and muting and knowing how to do that is such an act of braving the wilderness with courage. Doing more acts of kindness. I'm a big believer in doing acts of kindness. Sitting on the Zoom for 5 extra minutes and showing someone how to work it. Sending 5 handwritten letters every Friday morning before Shabbat. Oh, I love this one. Staying supportive even though my husband or spouse has lost his job. Right? Still giving another person hope and faith even when we doubt our own. I want to remind people that faith and optimism are very different. Optimism is the belief that everything will turn out for the good. And I wish I could say that as a rabbi. I wish that was the truth, but I'm not a Pollyanna. The truth is that faith is that we will face whatever comes, and whatever results from it, we will integrate into the future story of our lives. We will integrate whatever comes into the future story of our lives. I love the rabbis have established task forces to tackle our challenges, religious education. I'm so impressed with my colleagues. We'll talk about what we're doing at American Jewish University in a moment with Biyachad together, but I'm so impressed with my colleagues getting on Zoom and creating these virtual synagogues that people can feel connected. And there is a spiritual hunger right now. People are spiritually hungry. In a way, they were after 9/11, but 9/11, it had a peak and then people fell off. People are in that spiritual journey now. Telehealth, for the doctors in the room, all of you who are just getting on telehealth for 12 hours a day and literally chatting. I don't know about you, but I'm on Zoom all day long and it's so hard. Meditation, letting go of judgment. These are things you thought you could never do. I'm going to state the obvious. I never thought I could color my hair myself. Turns out I can. My mother would be very proud. May she rest in peace. She would be very proud. Actually taking more time to be with my spouse and my children. Someone said someone said cutting their husband's hair, right? Whoever thought they could do that? Leading Shabbat services from home. I think someone's needs to mute. I love this, talking to your children honestly and giving them a sense of comfort, even when you don't feel it, right? Sometimes we act as if, not because we are trying to pretend, but because we hope for a different world. And by acting as if, we are literally giving a taste of that world in this moment. So I want, for the next couple minutes, for each one of us to create our own toolkit. So if you have a piece of paper and a pen in front of you, you don't necessarily need it, but you might find some ideas that you want. So whether you believe in God or not, and many of you have heard me say this, there are 88 names, different names for God in the Hebrew Bible. There's only 500 words used over and over again. Turns out there's not that many words, but almost a fifth of them are dedicated to the name of God. So I don't care what you call God, call Moses, call him George, call them, iPhone, not your iPhone, somebody else's iPhone, but whatever you choose to call God, that which exists greater than you. Take a moment to think about, what would you say to God in this moment? Whether it's George, Frank, Sarah. And if you can take a tool, I want to give you a few tools. So the first one is to recite a bracha. Now, this sounds very Jewish, and I don't want anybody to feel like there's certain agenda that I have. I have one agenda, is that Jews are joyful and are empowered in their Judaism. I'm very clear about my mission. So I don't care if you're Reform, Conservative, you name it, whatever denomination. I don't even think we'll have a denominational world post the next few years. What I'm more interested is that you feel empowered as a Jew. So there's a beautiful bracha in the morning where we say, Pikuach Ivrim, blessed are you, our Lord our God, who's enabled me to open my eyes. And I have to tell you a story. And those of you that know me, I am a storyteller. I used to get in trouble a lot in school for talking, because I even used to pass notes constantly. And my French teacher told me that I would never, ever get anywhere with all this talking, but I do have to let you know, I found a career where I get to talk. So there's hope for everyone. There's this beautiful quote, this beautiful bracha that when we wake up in the morning, we say, blessed are you, our Lord our God, who's opened my eyes. So the first time I understood this blessing anew was when I got LASIK surgery. Now, you're noticing I'm wearing glasses. This is for something different. This is because I'm just getting old. But before, I had glasses because I had nearsightedness and farsightedness. And I had LASIK surgery, and I woke up in the middle of the night. I went to grab my glasses from the side table, and I saw the world anew. And this bracha floated in front of me. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, who's opened my eyes. But there's a new meaning for the pandemic that came to me, which is that each day we awake, as the rabbis say, it's easy in this pandemic to see the world as the same. Tuesday feels like Wednesday, which feels like Thursday, which feels like Sunday. You can't even tell what day and what time you're on. But the blessing here is to wake up without preconceived notions of what yesterday was. To not bring into it all the frustration and all the boredom or the monotony of yesterday, but to say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, God, for giving me the miracle of opening my eyes, for giving me the miracle of being able to see the world anew, the world full of possibility, and that I can see someone new. So whether it's that bracha or any other bracha, to wake up each morning and recognize that you could see this differently is one tool. Second tool is that we say for 40 days prior to Yom Kippur, which we're surprisingly getting close to and rabbis are panicking about, is we say Psalm 27, which is, whom shall I fear, right? And we say the prayer for 40 days before Yom Kippur and 10 days afterward. What Harold Kushner, the author of Why Bad Things Happen to Good People, says the reason for saying this psalm every single day, basically for 50 days, which is not nothing, right? 66 days makes a habit, is what he's trying to do is the psalmist is trying to work through his fears. So if you got up every morning or every day and you said Psalm 27 or anything to say, I am working through my fears, you would be one of many people of the Jewish tradition who've been doing it for 5,000 years. Third thing, someone wrote this, the tool of meditation. Someone just emailed me and said, Rabbi, I don't know how to meditate. So we took 3 deep breaths for 4 counts in and 4 counts out. And at the end of the 60 seconds, I said, congratulations, you do know how to meditate. Meditation is not about being perfect. We have a huge history in Judaism of being meditators. It's called hitbodedut. It is where we reflect on ourselves. Now, different than the Buddhist, we don't do that in isolation. We're not supposed to go in a cave and stay there for the rest of our lives. In fact, there's a great Talmudic story where a rabbi goes into a cave, and because he's so disturbed with the people's behavior, he comes out after 12 years, he sees what they're doing, and he starts to berate them, and God says to him, go back in the cave, you've learned nothing after 12 years. So 12 more years back in the cave, comes back out, and he says, oh, now I see. Now I see that what I was supposed to be doing was to embrace the people, not to judge them. So meditation is not to judge yourself about how to do it and how to isolate yourself. It's to help you find understanding, empathy, and compassion for other people. And it's very Jewish. The fourth tool is to transform your fears into faith. At the beginning, we wrote down all our fears. I want you to take the same idea and write down, what is your faith? I have faith. I have fear that I won't be able to hold my daughter's hand. I have faith that I will hug her with the biggest embrace ever. I have fear that I will not get another job. I have faith that a better job, a different job is waiting for me in this new world. To turn our fears into faith is to actually talk to God. The fifth one is to embrace that we are all in this together. So what does that mean? Is there are people in a room, when we were together in a room, that light you up. And there are people, as you know, that put your light out. And you know it because when you go out to dinner with another couple or friends and your spouse says to you, I'm ready to go. And you're like, me too. You know, those are people that put your light out. But when your spouse says, I'm tired, but I just want to stay, and you say, me too, those are people that light you up. Now more than ever, find people who light you up. Now, behavior and thought is contagious. So if you are with people that are constantly trying to find faith and to meditate and to take action, that is a contagious action, and you will find it too. Now, that does not mean you have to be happy all the time. That's not what I'm saying. It's that people that can share with you honestly and authentically about where they are. That can say to you, you know what, it's been a really hard day. And they can be very authentic, transparent, because that is an invaluable asset. And by the way, some of the people that we're with the most in our life are the hardest to be with. People like our spouses, they want us to be happy and they want us to fix us. And so when we're with them, it's hard for them to tolerate our wilderness, our discomfort. So sometimes it's not the best to go to those people. I always say, you know, when my mother passed away, as many of you may have known her, after she passed away about a year later, a therapist asked my husband and I about how we dealt with it. And she looked at my husband and she said, how were you as a husband? And he said, I was spectacular. I was the best. And I'm looking at him like he's crazy, because it wasn't that he wasn't kind and understanding and empathetic. It's that every day he was like, are you better yet? Are you better yet? You ready to go back in the world? Because it was so painful for him to see me suffering. The people we love the most, we don't want to watch them suffer. So sometimes you've got to find the people in a larger circle. I don't know what number I'm on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do something for someone else anonymously. Do something for someone else anonymously. Before COVID, I used to leave money. I used to put money in people's meters, or I'd leave money in the soda pop machine, because when you can tell I'm from the Midwest. At the soda pop machine, if you leave money and you watch the person find the money, they're like so excited. It could be the most billionaire, and they see that quarter and they're like over the moon, right? So what is it that you do that you could do anonymously for someone else? And then the last one, and then I'll turn it over to you, is practice love and joy. It's very easy to not practice love. I can see it. God asks us every day to say the Shema V'ahavta multiple times, because this concept of loving our neighbor and loving ourselves is incredibly difficult. I don't know where you are, but in Los Angeles, people have forgotten how to say hello to each other because they're wearing the mask. I don't know what happened. They put the mask on and they've forgotten to say hello. It's like we have to practice that care and love with a simple wave, with a simple smile, even under the mask. Like you even lift it a little bit and smile, even if that's like not allowed. Just say your rabbi made you do it, right? This idea that we have to practice love and compassion for other people now more than ever, because we don't know who needs it most. We really don't. So I want you to take a moment to put something in the chat that you've done that's been helpful for you. And by the way, I have a worksheet that I'm going to show in a few minutes that'll have everything, the notes in this, so that everybody has them in front of you, and I can send it to you as well. So don't worry about taking notes. I said that at the beginning, but then I realized I'd rather have you able to hear and see one another. So take a moment, put something that you've done in the chat that's really helped you. And if you haven't shared in the chat yet, brave this wilderness. Be courageous. Alan, I call at least 2 people a day. They appreciate it so much, and I get so much from it. I have to tell you, calling people that you haven't talked to in so long is the most amazing thing. Even if it's like a 3-minute chat about the weather, just to say, I'm thinking about you, is really powerful. Exercising with my wife, what a great thing. I like this one too. Reaching out to distant relatives. Cooking. So a lot of people are cooking. I just want to say a word about this. I don't know the obsession with sourdough. It's because the lack of flour, but feel free to cook away. Challah, sourdough, baking, whatever it is. It is such I'm not a person that cooks, and I've been baking every week with my daughter because she loves it. And just putting our hands in the dough and getting messy has been the most freeing experience. Lisa, I love this gratitude practice. Write 3 things that you're grateful for every day. Right? That's maintaining that perspective. And I just want to share with people, there's somehow this belief that if you can't be grateful and sad at the same time. Remember, we are complicated human beings and we have 2 hands for a reason. We can hold conflicting feelings at the same time. We can be grateful and disappointed. We can be happy and sad. We can be complicated, confused, and disturbed, and totally at peace. That is the nature of being human, and that can happen multiple times throughout a day. God understands that. If you have any knowledge of God in the Bible, God is literally a schizophrenic image of emotions all day long. God is merciful, God is just. God is angry, God is happy. God is disappointed, right? Because all day long we can hold multiple feelings because we're made in the image of God. I love this. I wake up every morning to the tune, and I sing my favorite tune for Shechianu every morning when I wake up. You may, Brenda, have to lead us in that at the end of this. I'm just saying, I'm warning you, you may have to do that. Susan, observe Shabbat more fully. What I love is that so many people now light the candles with family from all around the world at a set time every week. And even though that technology was available to us before, now people use it more than ever. It's so powerful. I send puzzles to friends. Sabine, great one. Love that. I can't get my kids to do one puzzle. The more I exercise, the more I move, I feel better. To take a virtual walk with a friend, set a time, walk with a friend. And if you think these things aren't Jewish, I want to tell you, our lives are informed by our Jewish values. And when we walk with intention, when we walk with kavanah, to be in connection with God and to be in connection with a human being, we are truly acting in the image of God. I talk openly to my friends about how I'm feeling, good or bad. That enables them to share honestly as well. I cannot tell you how much transparency and authenticity is needed. Lee, you dance. I love that. Whoever's dancing, keep dancing. Being kind to myself and patient. JD, to appreciate the vast interdependence. Oh, I love this. Jamie, you're a girl after my own heart, or a woman after my own heart. She started a skincare routine before she says the Shema, so I feel like I'm beautifying the mitzvah of praying. Let me tell you, there is a concept called Hidur Mitzvah, which is to make the mitzvah beautiful. And I love that, taking care of your skin. Participating in Torah study by Zoom. I do have to give a plug for B'Yachad Together. Here at American Jewish University, we built a platform that came out of my mind, and we've had 65 offerings thus far. We've had over 18,000 people register. We've had 500,000 people engage. I hope that you'll come on the site. When you see my handout at the end, you'll see a link for it as well. I call my 91-year-old uncle weekly. I Zoom with family. I've done crafts. Let me just say, Etsy is blowing it out of the water. If you want to do crafts, Etsy's the place to go, and I'm not paid anything by them. People have had weekly Zoom chats with their friends, drinks, cocktails. I'm doing an intermittent fast with 2 friends remotely. Not even sure what that is, but thank you, Tina. Zoom reunion and davening. So the other thing is, many people have gotten dogs. So I want to just open it up for a few minutes of questions. So for those of you, I'm going to have Helena take us off the Zoom. And if you would like, the easiest thing, actually, she'll keep us on the Zoom. What you can do is in the chat at the bottom, there is, if you go to participants at the bottom, if you click on participants, you can raise your hands. Up in the right corner, there's a thing that says raise hand. Oh, on mine, it's not doing it. Actually, we just won't do that. Helena, they disabled the raise hand. So with that.
It works for participants. I made you a co-host. So
oh, sorry.
Don't have that, but people do.
So if you would like to raise your hand, just go to the bottom of the participants and raise your hand, and I will see you, and we will take some questions. And then I'll close in a moment because I know we have just a couple more minutes. So if there are no questions and you're just deep in thought or you are taking notes, I want to do a couple things. First, I want to share my screen. What you see before you is a handout for today that lists what we talked about, as well as how you can get in touch with me and how you can go to Biyachad together. It's supposed to be a little reminder, and pin it on your board because I know nobody has refrigerators anymore. But I want to end with a prayer. And I'll stop share for a second. This is not our first wilderness, and it most certainly won't be your last. But this is our wilderness together. This is our journey, and may it last, may we not know if it lasts 40 years. We know it will last more than 40 days. What I wish for each of you is that you're a warrior in the wilderness, that you have courage, that you have faith, that you have the ability to take every moment and know that you are not alone, that you have been there before, your ancestors have been there before, and you will brave this wilderness. Together we will do it. We will be a light unto the nations, as the Jews are always. I wish each of you peace, comfort, solace, and I wish each of you the courage to be the bravest warrior as you head through today and all the days afterwards. And let us say, Amen. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll share the screen again. Of course, everybody is welcome to reach out to me. You'll see my email on the bottom, my Twitter handles and social handles, as well as how you can join us at Biyachad Together at aju.edu/Biyachad Together. Know that the name is changing, so we will keep you posted on that as well. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day at Limud.